What up guys, SuperMetal983 here bringing us another album review, and this time we've got some crazy deathcore for you to check out if you're into your just progressive stuff and your math metal. Then this is a release that you definitely need to get your ears around. But yeah, I'm going to be reviewing the new album from the band Darko, entitled Darko, self-titled. This is a self-released album. So yeah, if you're not too familiar with Darko, they're a new sort of progressive deathcore project from the US, featuring two members that you might be familiar with, Baby J, who is part of Imua, and also Tom Barber of Chelsea Grin and formerly of Lorna Shore, coming together to do some really chaotic and just disturbing sounding deathcore right here. Like, imagine progressive deathcore with just like some absolute noise going for it and just absolute obliteration just coming at you non-stop and just not holding back, then this is definitely a release for you to check out. But yeah, this is the band's second release. They released an EP back in 2020 entitled Part 1 Death Mask, which I listened to quite a bit when it first came out, but I haven't listened to it all that much because I've been really hyping up about this new album because the tracks that they've been dropping leading up to this release have been absolutely incredible, and I just couldn't wait to hear a full release from them. So yeah, we're going to break it down and talk about it today. So yeah, it's 12 tracks and runs around 45 minutes in length. And what can I say? The best way I can start off this review is say that this is easily one of the most claustrophobic and crazy sounding releases that I've heard so far in 2021. Like, Humanity's Last Breath was a crazy release in its depth and its overall just massiveness, but this, in my personal opinion, is another level of crazy. Like, this is just absolute intensity from beginning to end. Like, there's some breaks in there on a couple of tracks which we'll get to in a second, but the main mix of this release is just to create utter devastation and just utter heaviness and just make some of those craziest deathcore that has ever been put out. Like, this is up there with the likes of Infidelamsterdam, that kind of craziness, but this is of a different measure, and it kind of comes with very low tune and sort of that kind of... the best way I can describe it is like a more blistering and over-the-top version of the Imua sound. Like, their last album, I can't even remember the title of it, I wasn't really feeling it. Like, Look at Yourself was one of my favourite albums from that year that it came out, and I absolutely loved it, but the last album that they brought out, I was just like, nah, it just didn't click well with me. I don't know if it was the overall sound of it, just the songwriting, it just didn't vibe with us. I've listened to it like a couple of times since, but it still doesn't hit us in that right spot that Look at Yourself did. And speaking of Chelsea Grin, their last album, Eternal Nightmare, was absolutely incredible. So to see these two musicians come together to create something sounds like a recipe for utter intensity, and this is exactly what it is, because this is some of the best material I have heard from both these musicians. Like, the drum work on this album is absolutely fucking relentless. Like, it is from beginning to end an absolute masterpiece of what creativity can do with like layers, and each instrument's playing like not so much a separate feel, but giving it a separate vibe compared to what the guitars are doing or the ambience are doing or even what the vocals are doing. But the drum work really separates that, and it sounds absolutely pounding in there. Like, it's so crazy, like the off-time stuff, the groovy sort of stuff in there, it just makes it feel so intense, but still very interesting to listen to, because the grooves thing, you can, when you listen to it and you're hearing each layer balancing on top of one another to create this really diabolical sound, like not in a blackened sort of sense, just absolute crazy sound, and you're just listening to it, and then all of a sudden it'll change again, and you're just like, what the fuck is actually happening? And that starts even in the first song, Splinter Cell, which I was just like, what the fuck have I got myself into? Like, it blew us away. Like, this in my opinion, sounds even more ridiculous than Part 1 Death Mask, like, from last year. Like, this is just unrelenting power, if you ask me. And then on top of that, you've got the guitar work, which, my dear God, some of the most craziest guitar work and such low tuners. Like, what, it's drop Z for all I care. It just sounds so grim and so, like, especially when you hit that low string on there, it just feels like the earth is pure fucking shattering beneath you. Like, it sounds just so fucking menacing. And when the vocals come in on top of that, we'll get to that in a second. But then there's also the, like, ambience behind it on this album as well. Like, those crazy noises that come forward that you would hear on, like, the newer sort of stuff. Kind of like, it kind of reminds us a little bit of Tony Danza, Tap Dance Extravaganza. Hope I got that right. And Structures, kind of like that sort of, like, noise sort of ambience behind there, just to give it that real, how should we say, claustrophobic sort of feeling to it. Like, it just feels so compressed on you. It just feels just like your mind's just going everywhere, and it's quite unnerving to hear, but it is such an experience to listen to. But then that doesn't stop it either, because there is some, like, breakaway tracks from this album. When I say breakaway, I mean they change up the atmosphere of this album, and I'm talking about two tracks in particular, and that is Donna and Daniel. Like, those two songs are more atmospheric driven in progressive nature. Like, they feel more progressive metal oriented rather than progressive deathcore, and that's what I mean about this album. It has a real interesting flow to it. Like, it is chaotic as fuck for the most part, but then when Donna comes in on the third track, you're just like, what sort of vibes are you going for here? Is this breaking off? But it kind of, like, gives you that bit of rest, but it also shakes up the album a little bit, and then it comes in straight after with Pretenders featuring Ben of Shadow of Intent, and it just explodes yet again. It's a very explosive sounding album, but it has a lot going for it, and the guitar work is absolutely incredible. It's crazy, it's technical, and it's very progressive and very rhythmic in its delivery, kind of like Emmure, but it is still devastatingly heavy from beginning to end. Like, oh, I absolutely love it. And Donna is definitely one of my favourite songs on this because of the atmosphere on that song and how it just feels different to any other song, excuse me, that we've heard on this album leading up to that song. I mean, Insects, which I believe was the first track that they released for this album, and I was like, well, that was my first kind of initial introduction to the band, and I was like, what the hell is this? Like, it was something that I never actually heard to this extremity, you know what I mean? Like Emmure, Look at Yourself was pretty crazy in that sort of nature, but this is just like, just give it a Red Bull, and then that's what you get, basically. And then on top of that, the bass work as well, I might as well add, the bass work is absolutely incredible. It cuts through the mix and just gives that overall beefiness to the overall sound. Like, the guitar work sounds absolutely incredible, but I don't know if there is actually a bass on there, but you can hear that gut wrench behind it, so I believe there is a bass on there, and if not, it is a very rupturing sounding guitar tone, like, absolutely incredible. And then, so absolutely incredible. I believe Baby J wrote most of the instrumentals for this release. And then we get to Tom Barber. And now this is where it gets things I think get really interesting, because in Lorna Shore, when he was doing all of his black and deathcore stuff, and Flesh Coffin is still one of my favourite deathcore albums. Incredible vocal performance. Eternal Nightmare, once again, incredible vocal performance. No, I didn't say it in the review, but in the single review, I did say that. But yeah, anyway, his vocal performance on that album is absolutely incredible. But this is, in my opinion, his best performance of the year. Like, his range is fucking incredible. Like, the one thing that I took away from the Chelsea Gray album that I wasn't quite feeling was the fact I wasn't hearing a lot of his burpy style death metal vocals, like his signature vocal style. Like, you know, it just sounds like a burp, basically. But I absolutely love that. And there was only a couple of segments where I heard it across the entire Eternal Nightmare album. Whereas this album, it's across it. And my fucking God, it is gut-wrenching. Especially when you hear those fucking ridiculous, long, overdrawn guttural vocals that just hold the note, you know, sort of thing. Just for overall intensity, and it just ruptures your insides, man. Like, absolutely incredible stuff. And then he's thrown in some of his mid-range stuff that he used on the Chelsea Grin stuff, and is like kind of some of his high vocals that kind of like feel over pronunciated in the best possible way. Like, it sounds crazy because he's thrown off all these ranges. And another thing, what I would say, what makes this album stand out is Donna, because it's got some half scream elements, but kind of reminds us in a bit of Architects. And to be honest, like, no doubt in the guy's abilities, but I really didn't expect that from him, and it sounds absolutely incredible. And Donna is becoming one of my favourite songs to listen to this year. Like, the prowess in that song is just absolutely beautiful, beautifully executed, and I can't believe I'm saying that something as diabolical and crazy as Darko's stuff on this album could then transform into true beauty on Donna. It's crazy, but I absolutely love it. And then on the song Daniel, he does do a lot of that as well. But also you've got, what's his name? Johnny Reeves of Kingdom of Giants, and also Courtney, forgetting her surname off the top of my head, or I just can't pronounce it, one of the two, of Spirit Box, laying down some vocals as well. And that track is another standout track. But I will say this, those two on that track just make that song just that more incredibly sweet. But my favourite song, honestly, would have to be Praise the Sun, which is the 5th track. My fucking God, that breakdown at the end is one of the most heaviest things I have heard ever. Like that is unrelentingly heavy. Like it actually shook me room how fucking heavy that was. And I don't have a car at the moment, but if I was in my car, it would probably be the reason that it would break down again. But honestly, wow, what a fucking song that is. Easily the best song on this album. And then Donna would definitely be a second, and then probably it's the song what was it? I'm looking at the track list down here. Pale Tongue or Mars Attack, both absolutely incredible songs. And then you've got a little bridge at the end, which is the 11th track with If This Is Forever. Just kind of creating this ambience, like kind of making it feel like it's an intro. And then, boom, straight at the end, you get Darko, the title track, featuring Nick Arthur of the Mighty Molotov Solution, one of the best deathcore bands I might as well add, and I hope this means they're going to return at some point in the future, because he's been doing a few guest spots over the past year or so I'm hoping this means a return for them. But not to deteriorate away from that, but that song, absolutely incredible once again, and my God, this is an absolutely devastating album. Tom did an absolutely incredible job on the vocals, definitely his best vocal performance to date, and the instrumentals from Baby J, I believe that's his name, that's what it said on the Facebook anyway, but yeah, his instrumentations are absolutely incredible, and to be honest, I think it's just some of the most crushing stuff that I've heard so far this year, and some of the most impressive stuff. Like, this is up in the top sector, battling it out for album of the year with Osiah. And surprise, surprise, I'm going to give this album a solid 10 out of 10. I honestly can't stop listening to this album, and even every time I listen to it, I've been listening to it non-stop since it came out, I still find something new to love about it, and you will too. If you're into like progressive deathcore, math metal, Nu-Metalcore, then this is definitely a release for you. I would definitely say if you're a fan of Humanity's Last Breath, Structures, Imua, or Chelsea Grin, you'll find something to love about this release. I'm absolutely falling head over heels for it, and you will too. Absolutely incredible. Darko with their self-titled album, Darko, it's out now. There'll be links down below of where you can check out it, and I believe I looked on their merch store this morning looking to pick up a CD, and all their merch was sold out. So hopefully they restock it soon so I can get myself a copy, because this is up there battling it out with Osiah for my album of the year. So yeah, 10 out of 10 album. Make sure you check it out. And I'll see you until next video. And remember, stay metal, and I'll see you later.